Grinding Gear Games has done it. Let's talk about how GGG saved Path of Exile 2 with one hotfix. As you might know, PoE 2 has struggled with some early access issues, such as currency drop rates, item rarity drop rates, and monster collision problems. But GGG has outdone themselves yet again and fixed just about everything. I'm going to go over a couple key complaints that GGG addressed and fixed. Here's a more detailed video with some of the complaints. Feel free to watch that before we continue. So overnight, GGG released hotfix 0.1.0c, which has fixed a ton of the issues people were having with Path of Exile 2. And I'm only going to go over the most relevant changes in these patch notes, and I have a key in the bottom right here for each change. Red is a nerf, orange is a slight nerf and rebalance, lime is a slight buff and rebalance, and green is a buff. So the first change, which is technically a nerf, campaign bosses killed after the first kill will now drop less currency items, replacing them with other items. And you're probably wondering, what does this mean? Basically, people were going back into the campaign and killing certain bosses in order to just get like Exalted Orbs and other loot, since the bosses had such a high drop rate. But that has now been changed. You cannot go back and do that. The first kill will give you good loot. The rest will give you pretty much blues and alterations and stuff like that. You're not getting exalts anymore. You're gonna have to go to maps to get good loot or continue through the campaign. You can't go back. We have increased drop rate of Regal Orbs. This change probably is the biggest felt change by someone leveling through the campaign, because now what it allows someone to do is go into the campaign, level their character, and as soon as you find a blue that is decent, you will probably have a Regal Orb ready to use and make it into a rare. This helps so much with the power gap that you feel, especially probably around Act 2. I think that's when people start having the most trouble, because at that point your loot situation is kind of a struggle, but it is a much needed change. Next, we have significantly increased the drop of Gemcutters prisms. These gems were used to increase your skill's quality. So each skill has a quality that it has. So you can add these prisms to kind of unlock extra power in your gems. These were basically never dropping before. I'm in maps right now, and I think I have maybe 1.5 skills max, so I found about 6 of these at this point. I think I read somewhere that they increased the drop rate by 5 times, so it went from 100% to I think 500%. So definitely feel that one. In addition, they actually increased how powerful they are. So now you're going up by 5% for each Gemcutters you find, previously 1%. Gems cap at 20% quality, so you only need 4 of them to max out a skill. And once you max a skill with quality, you are good to go. This next change is lowered the drop rate of Chaos Orbs and distributed it among the other more valued currency items like Regal Orbs and Exalted Orbs. You know, I put this change as a slight buff rebalance because really Chaos Orbs they're fun, but they are not as useful to making good gear. I think shifting the power to Regal and Exalted Orbs really does help people, especially during the campaign. Because if we talk about currency that is saving you from having to spend gold in the shop or gold gambling on getting good items, Regals and Exalted Orbs are the biggest gold savers. Now this next one lowered the drop rate of Artificer's Orbs and distributed it to lesser Jeweler Orbs. You know, I struggled whether I was going to make this one a slight buff or a big buff. You know, thinking back, maybe I should make it a big buff, but lesser Jeweler Orbs, they let you have more support gems for your skill gem. It's a massive increase in power, You know, Artificer's Orbs, they can give you some more resists or more damage, because it lets you slot runes into your gear, but they're not as powerful as lesser Jeweler's Orbs, especially early. Disenchanting rare items with 6 modifiers now provides 2 Regal Shards, previously 2. The value displayed will still show as 1 until a later patch. Now, this change is really good because before you would have a 6 mod rare item and you'd only get 1 shard. As I said before, Regals are incredibly useful, especially early. So having more shards and thus more Regals is incredibly good. Next one is increase the values of all prefix modifiers that can roll on Waystones. We've also adjusted the chances of getting more commonly powerful modifiers such as increased rarity and pack size. Now this is a late game thing, so if you haven't finished the campaign yet, you won't know what Waystones are, but trust me, this is well needed. It makes early mapping a lot nicer and gives you more loot. Monster modifiers now grant higher amounts of item rarity and quantity. This is most common on magic and rare enemies, but also affects unique enemies if applied through various endgame mechanics, like the Deadly Evolution Keystone. What does this mean? Basically that if a rare monster has, let's say, 3 modifiers making it stronger, those modifiers just give you more loot. Before, they were just giving less loot. Next one is increase the chance for rare monsters and maps to have 3 or 4 modifiers. Kind of speaks for itself, but the more modifiers you have on a rare monster, the better the loot that will drop. This combined with the previous change of these mods giving you more item rarity and quantity, you're just seeing a lot more drop on the maps. And again, this is the late game system with the Waystones that, you know, if you're not there yet, it kind of revolves around killing rare monsters. And lastly, we have rare monsters in map areas are now revealed by the minimap when there are 200 monsters remaining, previously 50. You know, running maps late game, you have to kill a certain amount of the monsters on the map, and you have to kill all rare monsters. So as you were clearing maps in the late game, you would end up searching for these rare monsters, and eventually you may miss one or two, and then you have no idea where it is on the map because you've revealed most of the map. Now, once there are 200 monsters left, you will see all the rare monsters that are left marked on your minimap. Before it being at 50 versus the 200 it is now, it did not give you much help or leeway in finding these rare monsters. And those are the main changes. I'll quickly also mention changes from HotFix 0.1.0D, which came with a couple quality of life improvements. They also moved some of the changes to this patch. I don't know why. There was a dodge roll change coming up, and that was actually in 0.1.0C, but I don't know why they moved it to I don't know why they moved it to the D patch. Probably because they changed the dodge roll again in patch D. And we have patch 0.1.0D. This came shortly after the C patch, and it has a couple really nice changes. Now, I only included the changes that I thought were most important. If you go look at this patch, there are way more changes. So for the first one, we have passive block chance now applies to blockable hits from all directions as opposed from just hits from the front. Not all classes felt this or even knew about this, but your blocking chance only applied if you were facing the enemy, which, you know, it makes sense in real life, but in a game it is incredibly annoying to make sure you're facing the enemy when they hit you. Player size is now set to 0 units while dodge rolling instead of 1 unit. Now this is the change that actually was in the C patch, but they changed it to 0 units while dodging instead of 1 unit. So before any of these patches, you were basically not given a smaller hitbox when you were dodging, so units could surround you, and that is the body blocking issue that melee struggles with. So now if you're surrounded, there's a good chance you can actually roll out and get out of a corner. You can still get corner locked if you allow it to happen, but most likely you are going to be able to roll out. Thank God. This is probably the change that people are going to feel the most when actually playing their characters, especially if you are melee. Some smaller monsters can now be pushed while dodge rolling. This includes monsters such as the Adorned Beetles in Keth. You may have noticed all these small minion monsters, they would surround you so quickly. At least now you can dodge roll out of it. Inscribed Ultimatums and Jin Barias now display whether you will obtain Ascendancy skill points upon completing the Trial of Chaos or the Trial of Sekimas, respectively. This just means that people are finally gonna know if they're getting a skill point from their Ascendancy when they're doing one of these trials, because it was not easy to know which one was gonna give you what point. And lastly, we have improved attack in place behavior. This is another pain point for melee players. If you were checking that attack in place, your character just would not attempt to do that at all. You would just chase down mobs, and I mentioned this in my last video before, and really annoying once you realize it's happening. Well, that is everything. These patches, I am so glad that these hotfixes came through. They addressed pretty much everything that people had problems with. Now, you could say that they didn't really address the respec gold cost, but if you think about it, they kind of did. Really, the part that made respecking so difficult was that you had to choose whether you were going to respec your character points and experiment, or if you were going to try to use your gold to actually buy items from the vendors, from the gambling vendor. So you had a decision to make every time you got gold, whether you're going to spend it on respec points or if you're going to spend it on gear. But now that they have actually fixed some of the currency drops, you can make your own gear without having to buy it. So I think that gold being shifted away from spending it on your gear to being able to spend it on respec points, it actually helps a lot. I've made a couple new characters and I haven't felt as gold restricted on them, if that makes sense. But GGG, they always have their eye on balance and they have their eye on what players are saying. So I'm not surprised at all that they addressed pretty much everything I had a complaint with. Honestly, you could say they addressed every single thing because the respec costs are kind of covered there. And this is why you can have confidence in grinding gear games. They look at their game objectively, they see what's working, and they see what's not working. It's incredibly refreshing to see a company that actually cares what their game plays like, and they aren't just chasing some monetization or other, indicators, performance indicators for their game that is not tied to the player experience. And it just comes to show you, it didn't take them long at all to listen to these changes and make the changes. They released the hotfix. You didn't even have to see the servers go down. That's how professional grinding gear games is. GGG needs to be studied. And I know it sounds like I'm glazing GGG, and I am. But, sometimes a company deserves a little glaze when they do a great job. Thanks for watching, and if you want to see more of me, I stream at twitch.tv/lpflea around 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to see more videos like this in the future. And as always, if you have any feedback for me on the videos, I am taking that readily. So do your worst.